a good cast.
Thank you. You know, I really needed this. It's so nice to finally be off campus and so near the water. It's so peaceful out here.
I love it out here. I just wish we could have come here sooner. But somebody was ghosting all of our requests to pick a time.
Look, I wasn't trying to keep y'all from coming out here. I've just been intimidated by the water lately.
Wait, what? What do you mean you've been a little intimidated by the water?
Okay, I know this sounds dumb, but I rewatched Jaws recently, and I don't know, it got to me.
Jaws?
Yes, Jaws, the greatest horror movie of all time, the first blockbuster.
I know what Jaws is. I just don't know how it could scare you then.
No, he has a point. It's one of the greatest movies ever made. No, it's a strong story that got to show off Steven Spielberg's style. It has one of the greatest trio performances ever put to film. It has some of the best editing ever in a horror movie. You know, there's a reason it's so iconic.
Exactly. It's turning 50 years old this year. Can you imagine that?
I mean, I don't really think about stuff like that. How do you know that?
Well, I just remember hearing it when I was talking to the senior marketing manager at Alamo Drafthouse, John Smith.
How did you meet him?
I just ran into him. Anyway, he got to tell me about all the stuff they're doing for the anniversary, and it sounds really interesting.
We started as a single screen theater back in 1997, primarily showing old films. From the beginning, showing classic films, we call them repertory films, among other things, has been a key part of what we do. And Jaws, as one of those like top tier, most iconic films that people love, has always been a part of it.
Is there any at all a sort of tradition when it comes to the Jaws screenings?
Here at Alamo, for years, we try to find fun, interactive ways of celebrating the films, like movie party events, celebrations of the film, sometimes with props, sometimes with costumes or contests. I have for here, there. I didn't blow this up, but this, for instance, is an inflatable koozie that we're going to have for the movie party screenings in late May of this year. And then this, I didn't test this out. I might be the only person to have this, but this is, I guess, everyone's going to get one of these things. I don't know. I think maybe do I have it the right way? I don't know if I have it the right way, but yeah. So
I think it suits you. I think it looks great on you.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. The Jaws in the Water event. So the premise is that we've got a floating screen, a big blow-up screen that's either floating or it's on a little small landmass, and we give everyone who attends a custom inner tube that's got Jaws designs on it. And so your ticket includes going to the water park and also includes the screening where you're floating in the water, watching the movie with everyone else while it's dark. And yeah, little surprises that'll come along. We may or may not pay scuba divers to sneak around and spook you when possible.
That's got to be just a whole other experience to go through.
Obviously, there's a lot of movies that you'll wind up watching on the couch, you wind up watching off a stream, but there is something special to being in an audience and feeling the vibe and feeling the terror and being with people who haven't really fully experienced it. There are movies that you think you've watched because you've seen large chunks of over the years. I think Jaws might be one of those for some people where it's so baked into our culture that you think you've seen it, but you haven't really seen it if you haven't seen it in full, no stopping, no looking at your phone with the audience, and that's what we do at Alamo. The Jaws in the Water screenings, we're doing 2 dates in June, 2 dates in July. We're also at the end of May going to be doing the Jaws movie parties. That's what these weird props are for, and so those tickets are on sale right now. The Jaws in the Water screening events, tickets will be on sale in late April, early May.
Hopefully I can man up to seeing it again, but every time I close my eyes I just see that shark.
That's one of the few issues I had with the film. It made sharks too scary to the public. I can't begin to imagine all the damage it caused.
Okay, well that's kind of a nuanced topic. I mean, Peter Benchley, who wrote the novel and the film, after seeing the reception that it got, actually dedicated his life to preserving and protecting sharks.
Where'd you hear that?
Well, actually, I went to the Texas State Aquarium recently, and I was able to talk with their CEO, Jesse Gilbert. and he had a lot to say about Jaws and about how we could be protecting sharks.
I've worked with a number of different species of sharks, all the way the small guys, cat sharks, and some of the carpet sharks, up to the large sand tiger sharks, or like the brown sharks behind me, for the better part of 20, 25 years now. They're interesting animals. They are, I think, fairly intelligent. Sharks are even one of the few fishes that we can actually train. So we can actually train sharks similar to that we train dolphins. It's a lot of fun to work with them. You certainly have to be careful and conscious of what they can do, but fascinating animals. You know, I saw Jaws as a kid, and then certainly as my career has progressed along, Jaws and then the other Jaws were all interesting. I think what was unique about it was it did hook people into the mystery of sharks, right? And it certainly, you know, made great whites and sharks scary, but I think at the same time it's that fascination and you know, that fascination into the ocean, what lies beneath, you know, how is that environment, and how do we interplay with that environment. I forget which one, but it's the one at SeaWorld. So I remember when I was a kid, that was kind of my first introduction into, and in the film, they catch I'll say the baby great white, and they bring it into SeaWorld. And that, I remember that being one of the first times I realized that you could take marine biology and you could couple that with a career in, you know, zoological setting, something like that. It certainly did scare people about sharks. And I think one of the things that I've learned over the years, you have to respect them like you would any predator. But at the same time, they're not really looking for us. They're safe, but you do need to respect them. I tell people all the time, if you're in Yellowstone and you see a grizzly bear, you're not going to get really close to the grizzly bear. So why in the ocean would you go get really close to a shark? One of the best ways you can help sharks is certainly visiting the Texas Stadium, Corpus Christi, Texas, and you can see multiple species of sharks. And there's actually sharks here at the aquarium you can touch. And so that's kind of that idea of making sure that people understand they're not scary. There are some really unique adaptations that sharks have. So I think that's first and foremost. And I think sustainable fishing, you know, making sure that when you're out fishing on the beach, you're out fishing offshore, you're taking care of your line. Just don't throw your discarded fishing line in. I can't tell you the number of sharks that will come up and we see them entangled in fishing line, and other species too, sea turtles and dolphins. So if you responsibly fish, and we want people to fish, that's one of the great parts about living in Texas is the coastal fishing. Just do it responsibly. Make sure that you pick up your gear and you don't leave it on the beach.
I think it's interesting to think about how many people might have gotten into marine biology because of Jaws.
I don't know. With the terror I felt from seeing that shark, I'd stay away from any fish.
Well, actually, it's more about what you don't see than what you do see. You know, see on set, they were working with this very finicky animatronic shark that would rarely work. So in editing, they had to hide the shark with a lot of POV shots. So John Williams' score, you know, they were insinuating the shark more than actually showing it.
Huh, really? That kind of makes me think I would want to cut where I can see more of the shark.
No, you see, the thing about the animatronic shark is that it has black eyes. Cold, black, lifeless eyes. And that's because it's dead. But you see, when you see it on screen, it just appears lifeless. And that's when you hear the screaming from the director in the background, knowing that they're going to have to do reshoots.
But I want to see more shark.
You got to see the shark.
Okay, but what about like more shark?
No. That's not what it's about.
But I want to see the shark.
You get to see the shark.
Yeah, but I want to see more shark.
No, insinuation is
Do
enough.
you know what a movie?
Yes, I've seen many.
Okay, if you see a shark movie,
We can't talk about Jaws unless you talk about how it changed Hollywood. I mean, it is the blockbuster. Any other summer film stands in the shadow of Jaws' debut 50 years ago. I mean, when I had a conversation with Emily Rover Rodriguez, who is the assistant curator at the Academy Museum exhibit for Jaws' 50th anniversary, that was exactly what she had to say.
What motivated the curation of the Jaws exhibit?
So this is the largest exhibition the museum has done so far on a single movie. And that is really exciting. And I think there's only a few movies that could sustain that type of analysis, and Jaws is certainly one of them. We like to look at milestones, anniversaries, things that are coming up. I think someone looked at the calendar and said Jaws is 50 in 2025, and so I think that was probably enough to get everyone excited and wanting to move forward.
What was it like for you and your team to collect items and curate this exhibit that you've just described?
The movie is 50 years old, It was shot on location in Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts. It was a studio film, but at the same time, it feels like this kind of ragtag team that was assembled. Steven Spielberg was 27 when he was making this movie. So it has been a really intense kind of research experience of just trying to track down where everything could be, if it even still exists. And a lot of the stuff honestly doesn't still exist.
What do you think made it so important and impactful in Hollywood once it came out?
Jaws comes out at a really interesting time in the industry. So this is the baby boomer generation, kind of are like teens or young adults at this time. They grew up watching television more than going to movie theaters as their parents' generation would have done. So part of what happens is all of these young filmmakers who went to like film school, like Coppola, Lucas, Spielberg, they start becoming like the younger voice and really appealing to this kind of youth culture. So Jaws becomes this kind of experience that it's not something you're going to see on TV. It looks different. It's shot on location, so it doesn't have that kind of maybe cheesy look that filming in like a pool would. So it's really appealing to people this time, and it becomes this phenomenon really of people are waiting around the block. So it's the first summer blockbuster essentially. The release of Jaws, it came out much wider than typically movies did at that time as well. They could released in like over 400 theaters at once, which like today, if you ever hear about studios won't allow something to be reviewed until like the day that it comes out, which like when you hear that, you're like, oh, it must not be very good because they don't want reviews to come out before. But similarly, what studios would do is they didn't think the movie was going to be very good, they'd release it all at once. But instead, what Jaws did is it released all at once, and that actually built up the word of mouth because it was so good, and then it kind of expanded from there.
How do you think the film played into like the catalog of the Academy members?
Jaws won 3 Oscars. So it won for Best Sound, it won for Best Score, which was John Williams, and it won for Best Editing, who was Bernard Fields, who edited the film. So the Academy is rewarding it for its kind of technical achievements, and yet doesn't reward Steven Spielberg even with a nomination for the film. So I think, I have not met Steven yet, but kind of in reading through his archive, this was a very long shoot. It was supposed to be like 50 days. It ended up being like 150 days. So it was this very, I don't want to say traumatized, but it was like a very intense process, I think. And so kind of this roller coaster of difficulties on set, and then this like fantastic return. Everybody loves the movie, and yet you don't get nominated for Best Director. So I think I'm sure it kind of has this roller coaster of ups and downs. For John Williams, he should be so proud of what he did, and I think the score, one of the most iconic scores of all time, that you hear it as a riff everywhere. Like you can kind of you see all, like whenever I see like a movie or something and someone sees a fin or something, you hear the music, it's the shark. And so it just kind of helped. So it opens September 14th, 2025, and it will be open until July 26th, 2026. So you have about a year to come out and visit it. And we were really lucky. We worked directly with Steven Spielberg's archive at Amblin, with Universal Archives, with Joe Alves. And so being able to work directly with these people, I think we've got some really unique and special things for people to see. This is my opinion, but I think it's perfect. I think it's a perfect movie. It's so effective in its technical prowess, like the cinematography, the sound, all of these elements combined to make like a perfectly made film. But it's also so effective in its characters, and it's whenever I'm in like a group of 3, I'm like, am I the Hooper here, or am I like, who am I in this trio? And then kind of its broader implications on the industry. Obviously, being able to make a really good film that's also really commercially successful is kind of the pattern that after Jaws, all of the studios want. Really, I think the industry that we see today is very much in the wake of Jaws's effect. Kind of any summer blockbuster, I think, comes back to Jaws.
How are y'all meeting all these people?
But yeah, overall, Jaws is an entirely unique film that's changed filmmaking forever. And if Spielberg is the king of blockbusters, then this is the film that earned him that reputation. There may never even be a film like it. But maybe now 50 years later, we can feel the way they did in that hot summer of 1975.
Yeah, you're right. Honestly, I'm excited to see it again.
You know, I used to hate the water. I couldn't imagine why.